It's Reality Check with Craig Price.
I'm an idiot.
4 minutes in and I'm already wrong.
I'm like a monkey. Hello, look at me.
You're like a beautiful mind. I'm more like Forrest Gump. So it's,
Craig Price is the man.
I knew it. Craig, shut up. It's Reality Check with Craig Price. This week, photographer AJ Coots is here to discuss headshots. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for listening. Got a great guest for you this week, but before we get to them, a quick reminder that if you enjoy the podcast, please head over to iTunes and leave a review. It really makes it easier for people to find us when you have more reviews. Also, I'm always looking for interesting guests, so send me your ideas and suggestions to Craig@speakercraigprice.com. But on to today's guest. You know, headshots to me are a necessary evil. I don't enjoy the studio time it takes to make them. I'm self-conscious, so I'm never happy with the results anyways. And to get good ones, you have to shell out some good money. You can't just run down to the Walgreens like you're getting a passport photo. It's not that simple. And as a speaker and a presenter, I have to get headshots done on a semi-regular basis. In fact, I'm probably overdue for some right now, but I thought I'd talk to a true professional who specializes in headshots, but not just regular headshots. Headshots that tell the story of you. Often the headshot is the only visual reference you have of a person. And as superficial as it sounds, if you see a bad one, say on a LinkedIn profile or on Facebook, or worse, plastered on their website, you kind of think less of their abilities. Their credibility is often in question when they have a bad headshot. And we often leave it up to the photographer to just take a good photo, but we need to be a little bit more proactive and ask ourselves, what do we want this headshot to do for us other than identify us? It's more than just identification. So let's talk about storytelling headshots with AJ Coots. Headshots are the hardest things to do because, first off, you're getting pictures of yourself, which seems really weird. You know, people, unless you're doing a selfie, paying someone to get pictures of you seems a little self-indulgent, even though it's part of your job. But also, it's hard to figure out what you look good at. The hardest thing is not only when I get the headshots and finding someone who can do them well, but then trying to figure out which one's the best one. So, besides the fact that people go to Sears and get those what I call real estate headshots, how can we get a good headshot, and how do we vet a photographer to get those good headshots?
Well, Craig, I'm really glad you asked that question. I mean, the first part of the question I'm going to take a little issue with, and that is people always come up to me as a headshot photographer, and they can't resist opening up their phone or their business card, and they show me their headshot, and they say, so tell me, is this a good headshot? So my first question to them is, I can't answer that, whether it's a good headshot or not a good headshot, without asking them a question. So the first question I would ask your audience, and people we're talking to today, is don't think good, bad, binary. You want to think instead, what message am I communicating with this headshot? So, and I find many people don't even start with that question. They just think, They think back to fifth grade or something. They want to look pretty or not pretty. And that is completely applicable in fifth grade when you're getting your school picture done. But if you are a professional communicator, i.e. if you're a professional speaker, or even just someone in business, people do business with you for certain qualities that you have. And I can guarantee you no one has ever done business with you, Craig, for example, for having brown hair and brown eyes, right? You've never said, if we can only get a guy with brown hair and brown eyes.
That's because I don't have brown hair anymore. It's all gray. and that's the other, I need new headshots because my hair is no longer the same color.
Sure. I mean, that is a factor. You have to look like the worst feeling in the world is when you walk in the room and people are still watching the door waiting for you to walk in the room. Hi, guys, here I am. And they think, oh, okay, that's not what we were expecting.
I've seen that with a lot of speakers is that when I meet meeting planners, often I'm meeting them for the first time. I've talked to them on the phone, but I'm at a disadvantage because I'm the only one there who doesn't know what I look like. Everybody else knows what I look like. I'm on promotional material. So I often hear a lot that this is how I know I have at least a good start on a headshot is that people go, you look just like your picture, which apparently for a lot of speakers is not true.
Yep, that is, and that is an unfortunate thing. And I really feel some people feel that, they look at that and they kind of snicker, thinking, oh, this poor speaker doesn't know that she's aged, over the last 10 years. But actually, I have a lot of compassion for that, because I understand that getting a headshot done is very vulnerable. And often that person who's using that old photo has tried 2 or 3 times to get a new picture taken, and it hasn't worked out. It hasn't looked like them, or they look tense, and so they're hearkening back to this older picture because they know, well, at least I looked relaxed, or at least I looked present in that photo. So I have a lot of compassion for people who haven't updated, but it is, as you say, essential to do it. And here's why. That very phrase you used, I feel like I'm at a disadvantage because I can't see what the meeting planner looks like. We gain a lot of information. We do what is called thin slicing. And Malcolm Gladwell is a favorite author of mine. Probably you're familiar with Malcolm Gladwell. He uses this phrase, thin slicing. And that phrase encapsulates this idea of when you have very little information, you tend to make big judgments from that information. You tend to extrapolate out from what you're seeing. And so the reason you want to see a picture of that meeting planner is you want to feel like you've had a chance to divine something of her character. And that photo really helps you to do that. It helps you to place where she's coming from, who she is, whether or not that information ends up being correct. And I'd love to talk to you a little bit more in this episode about how we can strategically use visual language to communicate what we want, what is true about us. I think the biggest problem is that a lot of times our images don't communicate anything that's true. They communicate cliches that are generally true about like everybody instead of being specific about us. So the bottom line is, I think a headshot, if it doesn't show a little bit of who you are like instead of just what you look like, it's a complete failure.
And my guest today is AJ Coots of AJC Photography, based out of Portland, but we've known each other through the XY Group, through NSA, the National Speakers Association. So you not only work with speakers, you work with small businesses. And I wanted to bring you on for just that reason, because I think a lot of people have a hard time creating that headshot that tells a story. I do think they get into that mode of, well, I don't have a lot of money, because for me personally, if I had an unlimited budget, I would have the photographers for Saturday Night Live do it, because I love those pictures that they do of the guest host that shows personality, that shows something unusual. And it may not make great business sense, but from an aesthetic, I love it. But that's an artist, someone who is not going to charge me, a couple $100. That's going to be several $1,000s to get that done. And so how can we get from the Sears poses that we're so used to and kind of fit our budget, unfortunately, to something a little bit more creative and a little bit more us?
Okay. Well, let me first address what you said about the Saturday Night Live photo. So you said that you wanted to have that done, right? If you had unlimited resources, you feel like you like that style, right? Is that what you're saying?
There is no style. It's just that those pictures, if you watch the show each week, it's different. Mm-hmm. It's not the same picture with a different person. It's just different. It's just, they're fun. They got little props. They got weird things in them. They look like a professional artist, not a professional photographer, but an artist who does it for the sake of art versus commercial, which is, again, I don't want to insult the commercial photographer, but they do have constraints. I just feel that they have a lot more creativity and more fun than an average business headshot, which I would think a lot of people would say, if you're not Tom Hanks, that headshot probably won't work for you.
Well, let's explore that a little bit, though. I mean, I think when you talk about an average business photograph, I feel like there's this idea that the idea, and this is what I kind of walk into the world trying to destroy, is this idea that when a business person comes into a room, they need to have a business suit shot, and that they just happen to be in the suit. I want to turn that on its ear. In fact, I have had conversations with photographers who are, maybe they really love shooting weddings or they love shooting fashion, and then they will confide in me, I shoot guys in ties on the side to make a little dough. I hate it, but I do it. And I really feel like I see those headshots and I see that hatred come through in the final shot, because I see the suit being shot and not the person in the suit. So when you say, well, it's a business headshot, so we have to really lower our standards, I fundamentally disagree with that, and respectfully. But I really believe that as a business person and as a professional speaker, I know that those are two people who are maybe listening right now. As a business person, you are in the people business, and I think you are aware that you are making a difference for your clients. People come to you to make a difference in their lives. I think now more than ever, information is available. Even we can't necessarily write our own contracts, but we can, even if you're a lawyer, we can read up a lot about law. People are coming to you not just because of the service you provide, but the way that you individually provide it. And that's why they're looking for a photo, is because they want to connect with a person. So I really believe that business headshots, more than anything, the bar should be set high. I mean, if you're Tom Hanks. You're Tom Hanks. You don't need to communicate anything beyond. People already know you. If you are a practitioner in a field, or if you are a speaker who's going to speak at a conference, maybe you're not known. And you're certainly not known by the person who's thinking about hiring you. And so you need to be able to communicate who you are through that photo, your personality and your warmth, the characteristics that your client is going to hire you for, your credibility, your competence. It's not about the suit. It's about that dynamic change that you're going to bring into that client's life, that client is wanting to hire you for. They have to see that. And it's not about being in a cliched business suit, crossed arms position. It's about communicating that personality. And I really feel like the people who love you should be able to, and who would describe you, that same feeling should come through in your business. There shouldn't be any difference between those two. You shouldn't have a very stiff, cliched shot just because it's a quote-unquote business shot. In fact, that's the opposite direction of the way you should be going.
So as a customer who is looking for a photographer, obviously you can find samples online, you can see their work. And once you've decided that the person that you are going to work with, well, at least you're going to contact and talk to, how do you make sure that they can understand that? How do you present yourself to them? Because it seems like you don't have much time. You're going to have there's a little pre-conference interview, and then there's the shoot, and you can't spend all day at the shoot. You've only got a certain amount of time. How can we find it to get ourselves out? Because I think a lot of people don't really understand who they are enough to actually express it to other people. Right.
Well, the first thing I would say is the first thing that's really important to understand is that there's a dynamic range in photographers. Okay, so I think the first step is understanding, first of all, who you are and what qualities you want to communicate. So that's the very first step. The second step is to understand that there is a difference in types of photographers. And it's very important not just to think, oh, they're a professional photographer, they have a professional camera, therefore they are going to give me a professional photo and that's what I need. I mean, making that mistake is a little bit like saying, you have a broken leg, I'm just going to go to a professional doctor. This gynecologist is a professional doctor. I'm going to have her look at my leg.
She has to go past the leg to get to her specialty, so she's got to be somewhat familiar with legs as a gynecologist.
Somewhat, but she went into gynecology for a reason, right? She had a motivation to go into the field that interests her. She's going to always be better at that than at being a podiatrist. Even if at one point in school she took a half semester course, she's always going to be a far better gynecologist than a podiatrist. If you have a foot issue, you need to go to a podiatrist. And in photography, there's a spectrum. So if you picture kind of like on one end of the spectrum, picture your editorial photographers. That's your newspaper photo. That's your documentary photo. That's the picture on the front page of the newspaper with the car crash and the bloody shoe and the broken glass. It's what happened, right? And that's also your wedding photographer. That's, the Vera Wang dress and the expensive shoes. They are there to capture what happened. That's also your baby photographers who are wanting to capture the cute baby. That baby is going to be cute no matter what. All they have to do is capture what is happening there. Now travel with me to the other end of the spectrum. And on that end of the spectrum, you have headshot photography and actually food photography. So those two exist in that world. And the difference between editorial photography and food photography and headshot photography is instead of just taking what happened, it's capturing instead a feeling. Like, in fact, in food photography, there is a term that is called the hero shot. And the best way to explain the hero shot is this. Say you're driving down the picture with me, you're driving down the highway, and all of a sudden you see to your right a beautiful billboard of a hamburger. And you're driving on, you're a vegan, you're not even interested in eating a hamburger per se, but you still look at that billboard because you can smell the toasted sesame seeds coming off that bun. From the lighting to the composition, everything in that picture is not communicating an objective picture of quote-unquote hamburger. Instead, it's communicating an idea, a feeling. It's a promise. It's a promise of deliciousness. It's a promise of satisfaction. It's a promise that if you interact with our product, you're going to be happy. So it's very different from that objective, this is a hamburger like what you would see in an encyclopedia or Wikipedia. And so whether or not you are going to eat that hamburger, you still have that feeling from that photo. And that's what a headshot is. And that's what headshot photographers are trained to do, is to use that lighting and use every element in the photo to communicate a feeling about you. And my point is that it is essential that you communicate a feeling, because if you are just communicating a documentary shot of this is what this person is, how you could recognize them at an airport, your headshot is not doing its job, which is it needs to go out into the world and meet people before they get to meet you.
As a photographer, how do you get people to get out of their own head and be less self-conscious? Because there's a reason why I specialize in animals. Is because animals don't know you're taking a picture of you, and when they do, they don't get all shy and weird. Sometimes they get curious, they relax, they don't even care. But with human beings, and I've done this before, and I actually haven't had a chance to look at all the photos, but I took some photos at NSA for the Power of Women event. I took like 1,500 pictures because I'm not good with people, and so I just wanted to make sure everything was covered because I only had one shot at it. But I find that taking pictures of human beings, especially if they know they're being taken photos of, they get so self-conscious that it's really hard to get a good shot because they can't get out of their own head.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's definitely true. Absolutely, that's true. And it's, I would say that it's really, really important to, that's why we work with other people, right? It is very hard to get out of your own head. I often find two techniques that I use a lot that help people are, one, breath. So we are all, as adults, a little bit like little children. You know how you'll have a little child and they will put their hands over their eyes and they will say, "You can't see me." And the truth is, no, honey, I can see you. You just can't see me. We can all see you. And we laugh at that, but adults are a little bit the same way in that when they are in a scary situation, and believe me, having a camera pointed at you is one of the most terrifying situations you can be in, we tend to hold our breath because we feel that that is the way to control our environment. But it actually is just like that little kid. Holding our breath does not really control our environment. It just makes us stiff. And actually, so the first thing I recommend is that you breathe low. So I recommend taking your hand and put it right at your back where your tailbone meets your bum. And I want you to visualize with me that is an uninflated balloon. And now we're going to fill up that balloon with air. And just fill that up, just really low. Fill it up with air. And what that does is it keeps you breathing low into that tailbone, and then you're able to relax and breathe, and that actually translates in the camera. So when someone's then looking at that image, you look relaxed, and that feeling of being relaxed actually communicates confidence, and it communicates that you are in control of your environment. Because believe it or not, we can actually tell if someone is holding their breath in a photo, and we translate that instantly because we're all able to very, very quickly read visual cues. So if you met someone and they were holding their breath, you would know they're nervous about something. Is there someone in this room that's going to come out and attack me? Do they feel like, are they scared of me? Is there a reason? So we interpret that as human beings. We'll interpret that holding of the breath in a photo as stiff and as fake. So the first step is breathe, and breathe low. Don't breathe high, so don't raise your shoulders. Think of that balloon being attached to where your tailbone meets your bum, and just fill that up with air and let it out. And so that's the first step to looking relaxed in a photo.
Well, sadly, an uninflated balloon is exactly what my bum looks like. So you've got a perfect
First.
start there and just imagine trying to push that to an inflated position. But you said there was another technique, because I know breathing, and I definitely know that there's, like with babies, you can jingle keys and you can distract them and you can do all kinds of stuff. And I doubt jingling keys in front of a 55-year-old CEO is going to work.
Yeah. Well, another thing you can do is if you picture, what I will often have clients do is I ask them to picture a friend that they might like to talk to in that lens. So pretend, instead of thinking about the lens, think about the person that you're going to be talking to in that lens. So you might think about a family member. You might think about a pet. So maybe you have a cute dog. Sometimes we have people who are really uncomfortable with people, but they love animals. So, we'll have them talk to their dog. And then they break out of that feeling of being self-conscious. You'll translate that moment into a moment with someone you love and trust, instead of a moment where it's all about you. So shifting your focus from it being all about you to being about somebody else is a really helpful tool in helping you to lose that self-consciousness.
Actually, I just saw something on Facebook. I think Stephanie Vance, a past guest, posted that Columbia University is teaching public speaking by having people give speeches in front of what they called non-judgmental dogs, which I didn't realize.
I love that.
But I guess doing what you just said, not only for beforehand to relax them and get them ready to take photographs, but also speaking works just as well. So
that's great.
So that sounds perfect. So how often, because we're running out of time, and I want to make sure I get as much of this info as possible, because I'm going to abuse our friendship and try to make sure when I get my headshots, I'm all set. How often?
Yeah, absolutely.
How often should you get headshots? Because there's some people, and there's a spectrum. I'm going to use your example. There's a spectrum of people, and some people are very attractive, and there are some people who are not very attractive, and then 99% of us are in the middle. And I noticed that a lot of my friends who are very attractive, they get professional headshots like every 6 weeks. I mean, I'm constantly seeing professional headshots posted all the time of them, where my friends who are not that great looking, they're still using their prom pictures because that's the best picture that ever happened to them 15 years ago. And then the rest of us are in that middle ground. See how I did this where I didn't make it? I'm not pitying myself, but I'm not inflating my ego either. We're in the middle ground where I still kind of I look enough like my picture that I don't need to get another one, but I probably should update it. Like I said, I've gotten grayer. Styles have changed to some degree, but again, I still get people saying you look just like your headshot even today, which is good. But I also know that can't last forever. So how often should you get headshots?
Well, there's a two-part answer to that question. The first part is, again, I'm just going to circle back around to addressing this false binary, which is you either look good or you don't, and that's the measure for what is an effective headshot. It's really important to decouple our egos from the headshot and think about it instead as our headshot is our way of being present in the world, being present to it's an service.
I was identifying a trend. I wasn't making a judgment call saying that. I just noticed that the people who like getting their picture taken, they seem to get professional headshots all the time. Right. And I can't imagine that happening. I mean, I just don't have time for it. B, I don't have the money for it. And C, I don't enjoy the process enough to get it done. So I was just noticing a trend that some people really, really like to get their picture taken a lot. And,
sure. So people will like, so being photogenic is a little bit like an ability, like being able to sing, right? And if you are good at singing and you like singing, you're going to get opportunities to sing, and you're going to sing a lot, right? And if you are not good at that, you will probably not be seeking out opportunities to have that happen. However, what I'm trying to communicate is a shift from thinking about looking good, not looking good, versus showing what you've been building into yourself over the last. I mean, I could give you a short answer. The short answer to that question is we recommend every 18 months, or if you change your hair. But what I'm trying to communicate with headshots is that headshots are about communicating your character. I mean, that's why our company is called Storytelling Headshots, is because it's about communicating the story of and introducing people to what they will be experiencing when they interact with you. Okay, so over the last, so let's say 5 years. Over the last 5 years, Craig, you have changed in the course of 5 years, but also at the same time, you've been building things into yourself over that 5 years. You haven't stayed stagnant. You haven't stayed in your bed watching TV and eating bonbons. You've been learning.
Sounds like you've been watching my video security footage.
Oh, I know it. Those are good bonbons.
Those are not the Reese's peanut butter cups, but that's okay.
They look delicious either way. But you've been learning and growing and building things into yourself. And so that is actually, so a client working with you now gets more value out of working with you than they did 5 years ago. Would you say that's true?
I certainly hope so.
Right. So that is why we need to update that headshot to show that confidence, to show that value that you're now adding. And we do that through just interacting with you. The lighting techniques will change a little bit over, at least they should. You should be working with someone where they're evolving and growing and changing, and their work 5 years ago looks different from what it looks like now. So you're going to communicate your current by getting a current headshot, because that will, some people think, well, I looked younger 5 years ago, 10 years ago, so this looks younger. But actually you date yourself with an older photo because it looks like it was taken 10 years ago. So you want to communicate the currency by getting that done. So like I said, the rule of thumb is once every 18 months, or if you start wearing glasses and you didn't wear glasses before, you have a new look, then you would want to do it sooner. But the main, like I said, the heart of this is to think you are going to be communicating different things currently than you did 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that sort of thing.
So celebrating a milestone or an accomplishment might be a good time to get headshots, because you've grown,
yes,
not just financially or professionally, but you've grown as a person too. So so would you suggest like that's a great way to celebrate accomplishments, is by, going out there and getting new headshots?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, that's a really great milestone marker. It's also great if you've been like building a lot into yourself and into your business, and then you're about to transition into kind of a new stage, a new push. That can often be great too, because all that stuff you've been building into yourself is there. And then it's really important. See, headshots, again, they're a tool, right? If you think about them as an arsenal, you want to, if you are, say you're developing a new initiative, you want to be able to be showing up with that initiative in the world. So you want to have a complement of headshots that you feel really good about putting yourself out there in social media, on your website and that sort of thing. When you're kind of pushing out a new stage, you want to be able to not be hindered and not hold yourself back and say, well, I'm not quite ready to. You want to be able to be ready with that headshot so that when someone asks you, hey, can you speak at this conference, you say yes. It really is a change in energy in how you approach the world when you've got that. I always call it a hero satchel. So that's my goal, is to give you a hero satchel of headshots. And Craig, some of your friends who may be getting what appears to be different headshots, if you work with a qualified headshot photographer, my goal is to give you a range of images that you can actually switch out and look like you've had a new headshot done without having it done. And this is actually a way to keep it economical, in that you'll get, we shoot a range of different lighting combinations, different backgrounds, so that it looks like you've had multiple shoots. I had a client who said that she called me excitedly because she got kind of a big fish client that she'd been waiting to have for a long time, and she really was very happy to get. And this big fish client confided in my client and said, I have been watching your social media for a while, and I noticed that you kept having all of these professional photo shoots done, and I knew that things were really happening with you. You were really a mover and a shaker, so I knew I wanted to work with you. Well, the truth was she'd had one headshot session with us, but we had done a variety of backgrounds and changes and using different lighting scenarios to communicate different facets of her. And she just deployed those images over a series of months, and it looked like she was updating, and there was a lot, to quote her client, a lot was happening with her, and she wanted to be with a mover and a shaker, right? So that is something to think about when you're working with a headshot photographer. You want to work with one who can give you that range. I would say my job is to give you that, the different sides to who you are, and to help you to walk into those things. That I'm going to work with you, I'm going to draw that out of you, and then you can walk into the different facets of your character in a strong way, in a confident way.
Well, AJ, I agree with you. It's one of those hard things for people to do, especially if you don't enjoy getting your picture taken. I enjoy taking pictures. I just don't enjoy my picture taken. So I'm constantly needing help because, I don't know what to dress. I don't know what to wear. I don't know how to relax. There's a lot of things I don't know how to do. I certainly don't know how to pick the shot once it's all taken care of. So that's when I post every picture and just say, please help me. I don't trust myself well enough to pick the right photo.
Well, I'm really glad that you brought that up. I mean, one thing that I have really found in my business working as a photographer, specifically as a headshot photographer over the last 9 years, is that for me, I've been able to be mentored very well in the art of photography, so I've kind of got that down. But for me, it's been a journey in learning empathy. So learning how to put myself in my client's shoes. And over the last several years, so I get my headshot done every year with my mentor. And it's the best workshop that I could do in developing that empathy. So everything that you said there, I don't know what to wear, I don't know how to act in the photo session, I don't know how to choose my photo. I have discovered in myself feeling those feelings, right? So what we've done is we've developed systems to meet those fears before people even walk in the studio. So before you walk in, we send you a general what to wear tips. So you know generally what is going to work. We suggest not wearing patterns or prints. Solid colors will support you in a photo. We also recommend layers. So that's a shirt and a cardigan, or a shirt and a jacket, because layers tend to work really well and communicate depth in a photo. And you want to stay away from red. Colors are good. Bright colors are usually better if they're covered by a darker color, but they can work. Red tends to switch in its gamut in a photo, and it can be the very thing that makes it very striking on stage can fight with you in a headshot session. So you want to stay away from that. And then in the session, it's highly coached. So I'm using techniques. I always say we work with mortals, not models. So my perspective is not that it's your job to make this photo go well. It's my job as a photographer. So I'm going to give you everything you need to perform well in that photo session, so you can just be there. I'm going to give you the technique. If I hire a model, I expect her to know the angles of her face and to know how to present to the camera. If I'm working with a normal person, I don't assume that, and it's my job then to give that to you and to learn what is the angle of your face, what lighting is going to support you. And I think that is also why it's very important to, if you're looking for a photographer, look through the portfolio. If you see a lot of shots with models, if you see a lot of shots with babies and weddings, you're usually going to be working with someone whose entire perspective is that it is the model's job to do well and to give them, and they won't know what to do if you don't know how to give them what you need. So you look in the portfolio, see if you're working with a headshot photographer who works with a lot of normal people and is able to work with those people. Because if you shoot with a baby photographer, if you shoot with a wedding photographer, if you shoot with someone who does fashion, they are showing in their portfolio what they like to do and what they're good at. It's a little bit like that. If you have a foot problem, don't go to a gynecologist. It is well worth finding either specifically a headshot photographer in your town. We have speakers fly from all over the country to see me in Portland, Oregon. There are other headshot photographers. Often they're on the coast just because that is where the tradition of headshots have come up through the entertainment industry. But if you are working with people and you are selling yourself, the money that you would spend dedicate to a headshot it pays back in multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I would recommend, instead of saying, it's a necessary evil, I'm just going to go and get something close by, take the time to research and find someone who works with people. And then to your last point, Craig, you don't know what to choose. We actually sit down with our clients in a post-shoot session, and I sit down with them and we come up with a strategy around their proofs so that they're not alone. At the very beginning of my career, I would shoot over 300 proofs, and I just found it was overwhelming for people. So now we actually schedule time to sit down and we go over your proofs together with you, and we come up with a collection that you're going to love and that you're going to use as that hero satchel. So it's worth dedicating that time. I can't stress that enough. I've had client after client after client say that when they have invested the time and honestly the money in getting good headshots done with a qualified headshot photographer, they haven't had to do reshoots, and they're able to just feel confident to deploy those shots in the world, which is really, really key for your business, and can't really be replaced. You're the part of your business that can't be replaced. So invest in yourself because that is the heart and soul of the value that you're providing to the world.
Well, I've seen your photographs. They're fantastic. You work with some great-looking people, too. We saw each other in Phoenix, and you had a beautiful lady working. You were taking shots with. So you do a great job with mortals as well as models. So the company is Storytelling Headshots. Where can people find you and learn more about you? Because I know you do more than just headshots now. We are
at storytellingheadshots.com. We are storytelling headshot experts, so that's where you can find me. I'm in Portland, Oregon. You can look up my website. I'm always happy as well if people want to call and talk. I'm always happy to answer questions. I feel really passionate just about educating people, so I'm very happy to just consult with you if you have questions about your communication. And but yeah, storytellingheadshots.com, and that's me.
That's the show. Thanks to AJ for her time. Remember, follow the show on Twitter at RealityCheckPod. You can sign up for the newsletter at realitycheckpodcast.com, and while you're there, download the app and take the podcast with you wherever you go. Comments, questions, and guest suggestions can be sent to Craig at speakercraigprice.com. See you next week.